So we'll start from second last paragraph, stanza onwards today. Okay, from lines 26 to 32 onwards, if we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. So from this few lines I will start. Okay. So if you were not so single-minded, it means we were human beings are focused by nature. Okay. They are focused and they are progressive by nature. If we were not so single-minded, means we were single-minded and we are single-minded about keeping our lives moving. Okay, human civilization always progresses, so human beings are always progressive in nature. And for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness. Once, like as human beings are progressive, as human beings are focused about keeping their lives moving, then there should, at least for once, they should become physically inactive. Okay, and mentally alert, of course, physically inactive, because if you become physically inactive for a day, stay inside the home, what will happen? You shall have scope enough to think about yourselves, think about what is going wrong with us, and for this we need to take a day's work off, because human beings have become very mechanical. They don't have time at their disposal to think about themselves, to bring about changes in their lifestyle. Why? Because they don't have time enough. Like nowadays, you might be knowing, people are so busy. Okay, so that is why it is important to take a day's break from work, so that you have time enough to devote for your personal growth. Okay, and understanding what is going wrong. That is why he said, perhaps a huge silence. So huge silence will give rise to when you remain silent. Okay, so huge silence will come, or a huge silence will take place only when everybody remains silent, keep confined in their home and remain silent for a while. Okay, so that they have time for introspection, time for um, self analysis. Okay, that is called introspection. That is what is a huge silence all about. And as a result of huge silence, what will happen? They will realize that a huge silence might interrupt this sadness. What is the sadness here? The sadness here refers to the fact that human beings don't understand one another. They have developed misunderstanding with one another. Okay? Misunderstanding with one another. Understood? As a result of which, there is a lot of, as I told you yesterday, violence, there is a lot of cold war that takes place because of not understanding one another. So, a huge silence will give rise to the realization that there is a sadness prevailing in the world, and this sadness is because of not able to understand one another. Okay, so that is why the poet says a huge silence will interrupt this sadness. Okay, when people will realize that there is misunderstanding, this is how they will start working towards removing this sadness. Okay, so what is the way out? What is the way by which you can remove this sadness of misunderstanding? By realizing that there is misunderstanding. If you do not realize that there is a problem, you cannot improve on it. That is why realization is important, and for realization, self-search analysis is important. That is, introspection is important. That is why he is saying this sadness can be resolved only when human beings remain silent for a day, introspect, and come up with a workable solution. Okay, workable solution. So that is why he says a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. So as a consequence of not being able to understand one another, there is lot of chaos, violence, and consequent death also. Okay, human beings and property are being destroyed. Okay, because of this reason. Okay, because of what? Tell me. Because of this particular thought. Input capture is now closed. Okay, so Uday, just close your book. What are you doing? You're doing something, okay? Just focus on the lecture. Don't do all this, okay? You have plenty of time nowadays. You cannot complain that you don't have time enough. Okay? Plenty of time. So, whatever little time you are getting, you concentrate on whatever I'm saying, okay? Otherwise, you know, you might end up getting 20 marks out of 40. I cannot help you out, okay? I cannot, if you get 20, I cannot make 25. Remember this. Normally, I don't do all such things. Okay. So, now let's move on to the next, like paraphrase in terms of uh, paraphrase. Let me explain. Just read out once so that you understand, and then we'll pass on to the next stanza. Hence, they need to introspect by being silent, so that they would certainly know why there was so much conflict and violence in the world. The face of the race for more arms and ammunition. See, in the context of the Second World War, the race for more arms and ammunition and the desire to overpower and dominate over more and more areas and countries is what has threatened mankind with death. It was going on in the 1940s, 30s. Okay, expansion was going on. Like you might have seen, like British has colonized many countries. Okay, likewise there was a race for taking up areas of other countries. Like you might be knowing, like Iraq was also occupied by the United States in the 1990s, very recent. Okay, 1990s. So likewise, you know that in Palestinian there is conflict going on. Okay, every now and then. So and China, you can see now also China is encroaching Indian space. Okay, and a lot of countries are doing. Okay, so this race for possessing more and more land, race for possessing more and more nuclear weapons. Okay, that is still going on, but of course it is required, of course, to make yourself powerful. But it should not be misused. Nowadays, it's not being misused actually. But earlier, might be UNO and all this Security Council and all that, okay, were not formed securely. That is why it was going on. But now that everything, all countries have established democracy and there is strong international rule, international law. Therefore, these things are not being violated nowadays. Okay, except for sometimes here and there, like in Israel, what happened few days before. Okay, so sometimes it's there, but not always. Okay, like Afghanistan, you might have heard about in the just outside the airport, there was huge explosion. Okay, few days before, like 1 or 2 months before. So sometimes it takes place, of course, some violence and all that, but it's not always. In 1940s, 30s, it was more actually because at time World War was going. Okay, that is why there was, like suppose for example now Russia or China is sending satellites on the space, so other countries also are trying. Okay, like you might have seen, like spacewalk is becoming a reality nowadays. Few days later, people will go to travel in space. Okay, so it's getting realistic nowadays, and it is becoming uh, super affordable also nowadays. Okay, maybe not now, but 10 years down the line, space travel will become affordable. Understood? A lot of things are being explored. Okay, people are thinking of making settlement in Mars in future. Uh, so that will not realize, of course, very shortly, but in future people are thinking of this. Now sky is not the limit. Earlier sky was the limit. Now sky is not the limit. Okay, so films are being made on space. Space में जाके film बन रही है आजकल. Okay, not through 3D animation. In reality, they are making films by going to space. Okay, shooting चल रही है उधर जाके. तो It's possible nowadays. Many things are possible. So earlier there was no technology, there was no advancement in science, so there was no race for technology. Nowadays, race for technology also. Science and technology is improved like anything. Okay, space has space travel, space sending satellites in the space, and all of the stuff has become so competitive now. So if US is doing, India is also doing. Okay, so likewise, there is this is healthy competition. That is good. This is being done for the development of the art. Okay, that is beautiful thing. There is healthy competition. But writer in this, the poet in this poem is talking about the race for the arms and ammunition. Okay, and testing of nuclear bombs and all this. Okay, so these things cause damage to the human population and also the earth. It is bad for the environment, atmosphere also. Okay, so that is why the poet strongly condemns the use of nuclear weapons. Okay, and the mad rush for acquiring the arms and ammunition. So these things should be discouraged. So this is what the poet is sensitizing people about in this poem. Okay. Now you see, last few lines are left out. Perhaps the earth can teach us. Okay. Perhaps the earth can teach us. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead, later and later proves to be alive. Now I will count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go. Okay, so do you understand the meaning of this? Okay, so the poet says that we just literature, okay, not physics and chemistry. Okay, uh, it's very more difficult than physics, chemistry, right? Of course, when it comes to passing the exam, it's not so difficult. But when it comes to making something creative, like making a film script or serial script, बनाते ना हम लोग कहानी बनाते, then it's difficult. Creative things are difficult. Not I'm talking about not talking about passing the exam. And people go for the shortcut, okay, because it takes a lot of time and it's uncertain also. Okay, very much uncertain also. No one can say that you can end up becoming a script writer or a director of a film. Okay, uh, because these things requires a lot of creativity. Okay, and children are not having so much of creativity nowadays. They have, of course, but somehow this creativity is not being made the best use of by today's generation. Okay, because because of the revolution in technology, they always keep searching about information from the website. Okay, and they somehow manage to copy from each other, and they are managing. Okay, otherwise it's difficult job. Okay, you make a website where you write your own content. Okay, or you make a blog where you write your own content. It is difficult. Like if I ask Prakhar to write, Prakhar has straightway turned down the offer of making a video because he said he's busy with maths day. It means he is giving more preference to maths than English. Okay, um, what he can do with maths? Tell me. At the most, he can become an engineer. What else? There are a lot of thousands of lakhs of engineers out there. Okay, who are unsung heroes. Okay, okay. But if you see Kapil Sharma, everyone knows him. But how many engineers people know of this world? Okay, so if you want to get name and fame, there are many ways besides maths also. That is what I mean to say. Understood? But people always go for science, commerce. They don't go for humanities. Humanities have huge potential nowadays. Huge potential. Okay. So anyway, perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead. What can earth teach us? The earth teaches the cycle of life. Like spring, after spring comes summer, then autumn, then winter. This cycle of life or cycle of season. Okay, That is what the earth teaches us. Now see the weather is changing. Okay, at night you feel cold. So this cyclic change of season. Okay, that is what is the natural process in earth. Okay, so we need to learn many things from earth. That is what the writer says. What is that we have to learn to see? Like for example, from the season, like for example, in winter everything appears to be dead. But when winter gives away to spring season, you see there is a lot of life in earth, life in nature. Okay, the leaves come out and trees look so beautiful in the spring season. Okay, so this particular thing you see, when apparently in winter everything appears to be very very silent, but after few months, this dead, the apparently dead atmosphere of the earth becomes so very much vibrant when winter gives away to spring season. Understood? Likewise, he says, when you are introspecting or remaining silent for a few moments or for some time, after silence, whenever you shall resume your work, then there will be a lot of change in the world. Because if we are introspecting for a cause, whenever we shall be back to work, and this introspection is compared to the winter season in nature. Okay, like after winter, spring comes with full of life and vibrancy. Likewise, after introspection, when human beings will join workforce, when they will be back to their work, when they will meet one another, there will be a lot of change in their attitude towards one another, because this introspection will teach them the life lesson. Okay, that we need to develop or foster universal love and brotherhood. Only then the peace can be restored in the world. Okay, not through violence, not through war, chemical or nuclear weapons. We cannot bring or establish peace in the society or in the world. We can establish peace only through dialogue, negotiations, and fostering universal love and brotherhood. So this is the realization they will come up with after introspection, that he equates with nature. Okay, like in nature, spring. Okay, like winter gives way to spring, and there is life, there is what is that called, vibrancy in life in nature. Likewise, there will be vibrancy in the human understanding also, human affairs also. Okay, that is why introspection is required, because we have to learn the lesson from the earth. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I'll count up to 12, and you keep quiet and I will go. Okay. So, like the earth throbs with life when the spring season comes, likewise man gets new direction in life. The direction of being peaceful, empathetic, and forgiving as an outcome of introspection. Okay. So, what you have to focus on these paragraphs, this extract of these poems, important extracts. Like perhaps the art can teachers is important. You can mark with pencil this entire 33 to 37 lines. Perhaps the art can teachers still go. You can bracket these lines. These lines are important. You have to also uh, go through the figure of speech, like the literary terms from these lines. Okay, like so many figures of speech are there, like metaphor, simile, personification, alliteration. So these things also they are asking in multiple choice questions. So literary device you see here, for example, there are so many here. If you go through the website, you will find so many are there. Like metaphor example is fisherman in cold sea. Fisherman in cold sea, you can underline here in your book. Fisherman in cold sea, find out fisherman in cold sea. This is the example of metaphor. Okay, example of metaphor is fisherman in cold sea. Another example of metaphor is clean clothes, brothers in the shade. Okay, see, brothers in the shade is the example of metaphor, as well as uh, clean clothes, brothers in the shade. These three expressions, phrases are the examples or instances of metaphor. Then alliteration, you see words with weapons, no? W sound. W sound is repeated. Words with, have you got words with weapons or something? You see here, W is repeated. Okay, clean clothes. Clean clothes is another figure of speech that is called alliteration because the consonant sound C is repeated. So clean clothes, words with, words with what? Tell me. Weapons is, you know, weapons or what? Is something else will begin. No, words with. Just a minute, let me find out here. See, metaphor not track with depth. It is also example of metaphor. Yes, words with gas, words with fire. Okay, here the entire expression. See, words repeated here, na? So this is alliteration. That is what I said. Uh, green word, green words is also metaphor. Green word here refers to launching war against nature, indiscriminate behavior with nature, like cutting down trees, deforestation, okay, vehicular smoke, air pollution, everything is uh, green wars actually. Okay, so sometimes they ask you this also, like what does green wars refer to? There will be four options. Okay, so and then literary device also, what is it, simile or metaphor, imagery, all this they will ask. Then you see, then you, I'll tell you another few, like for example, here you see there is another figure of speech called anaphora. Anaphora. Um, Anaphora means two consecutive lines starting with the word, same word. So here, let's not speak in any language. Towards the beginning of this poem, you see, towards the beginning of this poem, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second. This is the example of anaphora. Okay, Anaphora, Anaphora. 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 Example is lads actually, because lads is repeated in two lines. Both the lines start with lads. So if two consecutive lines start with a single word or the same word, that is called anaphora. So lads you can underline and write anaphora. Two consecutive lines starting with the word lads. Okay. Then another figure of speech is there, victory with no survivors. Victory with no survivors, have you got? Victory with no survivors would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers. Okay? So here you see the internal vowels here. One is O in victory, O in no, survivors, O in survivors, okay? Then you see put on O, clothes O, okay, brothers O. So these are internal vowels, okay, coming together in these two lines. So it is the example of assonance. A double S O, A double S O, N A N C, A double S O, N A N C E. Likewise, there are many one day we'll discuss only the figures of speech. Okay. Then from this poem, if you have any doubt, you can ask me now. If you have any doubt from any of these lines, you can ask me. Multiple choice questions from this particular lesson, okay, will be uploaded on the Google Classroom. You can practice at home. Okay, this tomorrow there will be no English class, so you can do this. Okay, or how to send you, but you will be coming to school. I cannot do that. I will upload on Google Classroom then. Okay. And one sample paper, two sample papers I got. This also I forward in your group. Okay. So English sample paper, and as I told you, you need to buy the hard copy of the sample paper for practicing reading skill. Ashutosh, reading skill, for reading skill you have to buy the hard copy. Okay, because it is big and then it's difficult to do in soft copy. Okay, so because this case study ones are difficult actually, questions are somewhat difficult. So anyway, what I was saying you, okay, if you have any doubt now, please ask me questions. Shall we practice some questions now for English bank? Question bank. Shall we practice? 5 मिनट एक्स्ट्रा करोगे क्या? खाली सर तो 5 minutes एक्स्ट्रा ले लिया था मेरा बात बताओ ना, तो I can also take 5 minutes more. Okay, because in a democracy everybody should have the equal rights. Okay, everybody should have the power of expression, power of practicing religion wherever he or she goes, freedom of movement. Okay, right? So actually I was listening to music practice, the song is going on, so and then again whether teacher has gone there in every room, many people have all went gone. In the process we lost another 5 minutes. Okay, so anyway, tell me, let's practice some questions. Okay, but it will take time to find out. Hmm? Yeah, plus 10, this is plus 10 na? Plus 10. Have you downloaded this one? English question bank class 12. डाउनलोड किया है क्या आपने? So simple, see, it got downloaded already. Keeping quiet, I am asking you the standalone questions only, okay, not extra questions, standalone questions, okay? Just one or two questions I will ask you, okay? See, what I want should not be confused with total inactivity, right? So choose the option that draws the most accurate parallel. Keeping quiet means total inactivity. Here given, and then reflection and depth. So it is like each to like 5:10. Likewise, in this what is it called proportion? Okay. So in ratio, yes. In the ratio structure, the question is given. Okay. Like keeping quiet is to total inactivity. In that case, what will be is to something else. Say reflection and depth, silence and chaos, stagnation and introspection, mindfulness and fear. So, what see the question? What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. He means to say that whenever you keep quiet, just don't keep your mind process closed. Keep your mind process on. Let the thinking process go on. Don't be inactive mentally. Physically, you have to be inactive because you need to focus. So, keeping quiet, total inactivity. Likewise, reflection and depth, silence and chaos, stagnation and introspection, mindfulness and fear. So, what can you guess out of this? Can you guess anything? Or you need to see in front of you to be able to find out. Okay? So, you can write the way in 1 minute I found out the English bank. Write English code question bank, CBSE. Type in Google, it will come. Take you directly to that in the search result you will get CBSE NIC academic.nic.in. You click on that link, directly the PDF will open. When the PDF opens, you press Ctrl F and then write keeping quiet. Straight away you go to the keeping quiet lesson. Like this way you can practice any lesson that you want instead of searching the whole document. Ctrl F, write down the name of the lesson, type it, press the enter button, then it will take you to that lesson. Okay. Okay. I told Prakash to make a tutorial video. No need, but okay, now first tomorrow one slot will be uploaded of 45 1 hour. Okay, and next week Wednesday the 4 hour. Okay, so let's wind up now. You can download and practice at home. This is there, no? And turn one, most of the questions might come from here because it is space. Some questions might be repeated also. Okay, because otherwise where will they get so many questions from? So some of the questions will be repeated. So sample paper pura solve karna and this question bank if you solve, then I am sure at least 30 to 40% you will get. Okay. And I'll post upload on the Google Classroom these lessons. Okay, I'll try tonight. If not possible tomorrow evening, I'll. What's your name?